yeah, being a 19-year-old widow, I had lost my high school sweetheart. We had only been married 2.5 months when everything happened. It just was such a rare thing. I hadn't known anybody else that had been widowed to the same capacity. That short, like I said, that short of time, that young, just those things kept kind of piling up.
In today's episode of Living the Reclaimed Life, we're going to be talking with Ashley Hughes, who is the founder and executive director of Joy in the Mourning. Ashley experienced the traumatic loss of her husband at a young age, and from that time, she has been on a mission to be able to share with others how to help those who are going through loss and who are struggling. This is Robin Blumenthal, and I'm one of the co-hosts of Living the Reclaimed Life.
Before we get started, we want to thank the sponsors for today's episode, Joy in the Mourning. Joy in the Mourning exists to support those who are walking through grief by equipping individuals and communities with resources, training, and compassionate support so that no one has to navigate grief alone. Be sure to check out their incredible support app designed to help you become the kind of friend that someone who is grieving is truly in need of.
And now let's hear Ashley. Hello, welcome to Living the Reclaimed Life podcast. My name is Robin Blumenthal, and I'm one of the new co-hosts for the podcast, and I'm so glad you're here today. Today we have Ashley Hughes. Ashley has been a guest on the podcast, but it's been several years. So we're excited to have Ashley back and to have her talk about her passion, her organization, her ministry, Joy in the Mourning. Ashley is the founder and the executive director. So Ashley, welcome, and tell us a little bit about yourself and a little bit about Joy in the Mourning, how it got started maybe.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for having me. I love Reclaim Story. I love Denisha and her team, and especially you, Robin. Like, it's just such an honor to be back in this season. I actually started Joy in the Mourning in 2020. It became a passion project after years of serving women that had been widowed, just from word of mouth. There was a lot of unfortunate loss in my family, including the loss of my late husband early in my life. And so I had gone through a lot of those experiences. And so God would just bring me people, bring me maybe a family or maybe a woman that had just been widowed. And I would just kind of walk them through the same type of things I had to go through at a young age. And through the years, it was kind of like God was really just setting up the like crumbs to follow, like, hey, hello, this is a ministry. And so it was always a personal ministry to me. But in early 2020, so pre-pandemic, I didn't know it was coming or we were going to have just this craziness that the world, was unfolding. God led us to actually start a ministry and put everything on paper and put the structure to it and a mission and a vision and really go through the process. And so we started that process early 2020, and then unfortunately the pandemic hit. And so it was a lot of trial by fire, a lot of unfortunate funerals and memorials within that first year before we even had board members or funding or it was just me and thank the Lord, I am remarried now, me and my husband just doing what we could when we could. And that's how Joy in the Mourning started in 2020.
Gosh, and it's so funny as I think back, I'm remembering you invited my husband and I over to dinner. And I remember us talking about this idea that you had. And I hadn't forgot about that. I hadn't remembered the year, obviously. But as I was thinking about it, I thought, wow, that's been a long time. And I remember you were just at the point of getting things on paper,
Yeah.
I think. And I look at where you are now in the ministry that you have. And it's been amazing to watch God work through you and in you, you and David, as you travel and you speak to churches. And as you take this ministry of care and comfort to so many people, would you mind telling us a little bit about maybe what that was like being a young widow? So many people obviously may experience that, but not as many people experience that at such a young age. And how did that maybe even direct more of this ministry than if it had perhaps happened later?
Yeah, so as I look back, I always think about like that's just a rare thing. First of all, being widowed. Even if I was widowed at this age, it would be I think 15 years sooner than the national average. So, um, yeah, being a 19-year-old widow, I had lost my high school sweetheart. We had only been married 2.5 months when everything happened. It just was such a rare thing. I hadn't known anybody else that had been widowed to the same capacity. That short, like I said, that short of time, that young, just just those things kept kind of piling up. The way I was widowed, he was actually murdered by a man under the influence of drugs, alcohol. So it was just so many different dynamics to the story and a lot to walk through at a young age. And so to look at that, I was like the first in my friend group,
Mhm.
family group. I mean, to go through these type of things, yeah, it was just incredibly rare. And I think I unfortunately learned um, the hard way in so many things. Like I did have a relationship with the Lord, and I did have some believers that would walk alongside me, but it felt sparse and it felt random at times. It was never like a consistency. And I also had some family members, right? But it was kind of the same thing. It would always just be hit and miss. And I think people just didn't know what to do with me because I was young, because the circumstance was so wild. And I think a lot of people thought because of my circumstance, born and raised in Tucson, that I had friends and family here, everybody always assumed somebody else was there for me.
Mm.
And so I learned a lot of those lessons that were probably hard, like harder on me than that would have been in a not a normal. But how do you, there's no normal deaths or situations, right?
But some
Um,
assumptions we might make
assumptions,
that
yes.
somebody who's lost a spouse, that they've been married longer, or they were older, or maybe there was some warning, or like all of those things didn't apply to you.
Right, right, like being established. And so, unfortunately, I think a lot of people treated it more like a breakup than a
Mm.
death of a spouse,
Gosh.
including like, oh, when you get remarried next, and people just bringing up these ideas of like, are you going to start dating? And like, he hadn't even been gone a month,
Mm.
so those
So
type,
they're looking at your future, and you're
yeah,
like, I'm trying to just deal with my present right now.
yeah, yes, yes. Just again, the mourning aspect of it, but also like the finances. I mean, we had just switched over our names, being on the vehicles and the insurance and so it's like we had just barely gotten to that point where switching, adding me on everything. And then it was like now I have to switch everything
Oh,
off.
God.
And just weird, just a lot of weird stuff. So
Yeah. So many.
um yeah, just a lot. It just yeah. I don't even know how to describe that season other than miraculous. Like it was literally God bringing me through just day by day, hour by hour. I did have some really good friends that were not the people you would think that would be the ones that would stick by you. I had a friend, she was younger than me, but she had lost her dad. And so she knew a lot of stuff to do, and this isn't a professional counselor. This isn't a pastor or a ministry leader. And she
Just a
was
regular person
so
who
regular.
just saw the need and
Yeah.
walked alongside you.
Yeah, and she was, I think even at this point, she had maybe just graduated high school or just not even barely, but she still knew to check in on me, just things that were very sweet, but it took a friend to just consistently be there and show up. And I had two very close friends, they were in college, but they were out of state. So they would pick a day and they'd always make sure to check in on me and call me. And those type of things were the things that really stuck out. But then I would be in my own hometown and be alone and be like, God, where is everybody? And God would be like, I'm here. I'm leading you through this. And it was really just his sweet presence that brought me through the hardest times for sure.
Well, one, thank you for sharing that and for being vulnerable and just walking through that pain a bit with us. I think of all of the different pieces as you've talked about the people being there for you and checking in. And because I'm a little familiar with Joy in the Morning and what you help to equip people to do and advocate for them to do, it sounds that God used all of that right? To be able to, they often say your misery becomes your ministry.
Mm,
I've heard
yeah.
that said, and not that that's what any of us would want. Sometimes we're like, no, no, I don't want that. And yet there's so much beauty in allowing God to, one, heal you and to work through you, and now the healing and the hope that you can bring to other women. So thank
Amen.
you for just being an obedient servant of God, and placing all of that at the foot of the cross so that he can use it.
Thank you. Yes. Amen. It was like, I mean, like I said, it's just God had to take that, right? And but the only way he can take it is if we surrender it. And trust me, I had the seasons I was being bitter, I was being unforgiving, I was, just angry. I had all of those seasons mixed in. But yes, like that big just aha moment of God has really got me and has carried me. It really hit me pretty soon into the process. And so about 9 months in, it was like God was in the room, like talking to me, like,
Um,
I need you to forgive. I want to heal this part of your life. I want to use this part of your life. And it's hard to look away when the King of Kings is showing up in your room and saying, I have something better for you. And the healing that comes obviously was a process. It wasn't like overnight, everything was magically better. Um, but there was a lot that was lifted, and I'm still seeing the residual effects. I'm still seeing the things that I never thought he could use or would want to use, or the stories that I'll remember. And it's like, oh, like, thank you. Thank you for covering this. Thank you for protecting me or bringing this provision. Or there's just so many beautiful things like that that I can only be grateful for
like
what
all
he's
those
done.
broken pieces, and you're like, well, that one, I'm just gonna toss that one out. That's gonna, and God's like, no, bring them all to me,
Yeah.
because you don't know what I know or what I can see that I would be able to use.
Yeah.
Oh, gosh, I think about even just the as a somebody who's been a pastor for a lot of years, walking with women who have struggled, who have lost a spouse, or who had even other losses, right? But in this particular case, who are now finding themselves alone. And I think that power of presence, there's
Mhm.
really nothing more important than that. So certainly God's
Yeah.
presence, but also this side by side presence with people.
Yeah.
So you took all of this, you founded
Yeah.
Joy in the Morning.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about what you do with Joy in the Morning, or what you hope Joy in the Morning does. And then we'll talk a little bit more about even within the church, but just in general, tell us a little bit more about this
Yeah.
ministry that now has come out of all of that hurt.
Yeah. So what's really great is that when we were like in the planning, the dreaming stage, it was like we were boots on the ground. And so unfortunately, like uh the first memorial we did was a friend, a pastor in the city. And so just being there, showing up, helping the church walk through, this is how you plan a funeral, memorial. Here's some things a family's going to need 6 months out, a year out, 2 years out.
Mhm.
Really kind of giving the church a big picture of this is what walking alongside somebody looks like. And it's not all we're just sitting around praying, which is wonderful and amazing, right? Sometimes it's showing up and cleaning the dog poop in the backyard or helping get the kids to school because now mom has to work 2 jobs and it's craziness, right? And so we really just started by being boots on the ground. We had like a structure, we had the hopes of like what it would accomplish, but we just started serving. So we would get called by a family and we would just jump in of like, what's the need right now? A lot of
Mhm.
times it was the funeral and memorial. Sometimes it was just that practical support. I've got weeds in my backyard. They're a foot long because we just had monsoons in Tucson and we need help,
Right.
you
We don't know
know.
what to do.
Right. We don't know what to do. Sometimes we'd have people call for rent money and um, maybe they needed a moving truck because they were moving. And so it was like meeting the need if there was a financial need. Maybe it was a serving need because they needed people there. Maybe it was just sitting on the phone and talking to them or going to their house and bringing coffee. So it just became each circumstance, we treated different. It wasn't like, here's our check boxes and now we're going to do one, two, three, and we're done. You know, it was really seeking God in that moment. What does this woman need? What does this family need? How can we serve them? And so it really developed over 3 years of serving our local community. And I think at one point we had about 30 women that had been widowed that would show up. We started hosting community night. And what that would look like is we would serve them and we would serve them a meal and we would give them flowers or little gifts or just little things, nothing big or extravagant, just something that they knew that we care for you, you're special, you're loved by God, and we want you to relax tonight. Like we know grieving is hard, it's rough on your body, it's rough on your life, and sometimes you just need a moment to be celebrated and to feel loved and special. And so we would host these community nights, and that was always a lot of fun because these ladies would get together and share, you know, their stories. And sometimes we go out to a movie, and that was our community night. And we would just find little things to do, but to do together. But eventually, like I said, we kind of started growing, and it wasn't just like one family here, one family there. It was like a lot of women that started kind of coming together. So, but what's also great about our process is that we realize like discipleship and walking them through the hard seasons, because sometimes there's that really hard at the beginning, but then discipleship of like, we need to re-enter life. And what does that look like? And so through Bible study and prayer, but again, like I said, walking them through things, some women we would connect with a job. I mean, it's almost like being a social worker in a weird way, but like not a social worker, but kind of connecting all these pieces for them so they weren't alone in maybe the job search or looking at the situation differently of, okay, this woman had told me her and her husband had just planned basically building their dream house to retire in. They were in this transition period. They were living in an apartment for this dream house to be built when he passed away. And so they were just already in this like limbo space, but then now the dream house isn't happening. She's in an apartment. And that's like, how can we relook at this situation? Do you have friends or family you can move in with? She ended up moving in with a couple from her church who were great, very gracious, and had a great big room for her. But it's like sometimes you need somebody to come alongside you and even think through this hard situations because you're just like, I can't think, I haven't
Life has
slept.
thrown you for the ultimate loop that you were
Yes.
not planning on, and you have to relook at everything because your trajectory was with this person in this
Yeah.
direction, and it
Yeah.
changes it all.
Yeah. Totally
Goodness. So you
changes it
were
all.
doing so much of that boots on the ground, and
Yes.
at some point, I'm going to guess you realized that, wait a minute, I can't be the only person ministering to all of these widows.
Yes.
How do we multiply that and mobilize people? So
Yes.
tell us a little bit about where you were and then now where you're at now, what your goal is with churches and the ministry that you want to offer them.
Yes. So that's actually, I think, real this kind of at this tail end of serving all these people, right? And almost to the point of exhaustion, which I don't think God really wants us to get to that point. But in his mercy and his grace, sometimes he'll let us he'll let us push ourselves to when it's too much. So I had basically gotten at that point of seeing these women we had served, we had walked alongside. They were transitioning into like entering life again. And then they kind of just stopped showing up at all of these things we were planning, which was fine. But sometimes when you're planning a big thing and then you're like, nobody's showing up, what's happening? So kind of checking in with people, they kind of started not needing the group as much
Mm.
because they were re-entering. And that's what you want, you know? You want them to start serving somewhere. You want them to start living life again, right? Like you don't want them always just like, this is, and it was never, I would never felt like the groups were sad or down or, you know, they were always full of life.
But there was a season, and now that season was
Yes.
changing.
Yes. There was a season from being newly widowed, and that widowed could be, we did have people part of a group that was either by death or abandonment. So maybe their spouse had abandoned their vows and had left the marriage. So we approached widowhood from both places. And So after 2 years of kind of running these groups and working with these women, we would see them transitioning. And that was really good. And then we didn't start taking on these new families or women because right at kind of that breaking point, that transition, it was just so now how I can see how God orchestrated it all. I started having pastors call me and ministry leaders call me and say, we have so and so at their church. They just lost their spouse. Can they come to your group? So, first of all, I didn't have something available for them because we were kind of moving out a little bit of that monthly group that we were
Uh-huh.
doing. But then also, I was just looking at things like, wait a second, you have a whole church full of people that can help and care for this women. And a lot of the women we cared for, honestly, they didn't have a church. They were either not believers or they didn't have a home church. And so when I was getting these calls from pastors, I was just like, this feels weird, like almost feels wrong. Like,
Right. Like the church that cares for people, we're going to give it to just you to care for these people because we're busy doing whatever else, not caring for people, or we don't. Yeah, I can see where there were like
yeah,
a kind of a
it
disconnect.
was just,
Right.
yeah, I was like, whoa. And it almost felt like too, like it felt like if I take care of this woman, like I'm robbing you of your blessing. Like
Mm,
this is such a
love
beautiful
that.
ministry. And if your church doesn't get to experience this or see God move in these like in these situations, like where else are you going to find hope? If we're always like um what's the word, like outsourcing, if we're always outsourcing the ministry God brings to our church or to our family or to our friendships, then we're never going to see these end results that he wants us to see.
Right. That
And
restoration and all
yes.
of that. Yeah.
Yes. And so it was kind of like God was like, hello, like again, it takes me a little bit.
Well, I think it's true with all of us, but it seems
Yeah.
like it was the right time too. So
Oh,
you had done on that, you had figured out what care looks like
yeah.
and support. And now God's calling you. Now I want you to take what I have brought you through and
Yeah.
brought you to so that you
Yeah.
can now mobilize and multiply that with other
Yeah.
churches.
Yes, yes. But it started, so it was like I had these pastors, ministry leaders calling me, and they were just trying to pass off a person kind of a thing. And I know that wasn't actually their heart, but that's
Right.
kind of how sometimes kind of it feels, like just being honest.
Yeah.
But then I would have like the opposite happen. Like there was a donor, a really great family. I actually not donor, ministry partner. There was somebody that was partnering in the ministry with us and they didn't live in town and they were experiencing the death of a coworker's wife
Mm.
and called me for some suggestions and for some advice. And I just was like, wow, this what a difference. Like calling me because they knew, well, she's not
Mm.
going to step in, the ministry's not going to step in because we're out of town, but they were willing to be the boots on the ground and they just needed guidance. And so I was like, wow, well, here's some things like I'll email you some, of my process. And then I was like, let me pray for you. And like after I prayed for them, I just felt peace. I know they felt peace. And like it felt like a commissioning. It felt like you can go do this. And I think they felt like they could go do this. And
Like the
they're
disciples, right? When Jesus
right.
is like, you kind of experience this. Now I want you to go and go in with this knowledge and this power and this strength.
Yes, yes. And that's exactly what they did. They actually ended up showing up at this person's house and nobody was there.
Mm.
And I just praise God for that. I praise God for their willingness to be a part and then to call and for God giving me the wisdom to say, go, just show up. If people are there, then like, you can do this other part over here with people from work, but just go first, like see what's going on.
Mm.
And they ended up walking this family through planning the funeral, just being there till other family and friends could show up. And it was
Mm.
just such a beautiful thing to see, like, oh my gosh, this works. If people just have the information and feel empowered and commissioned, then it works. And so that's what actually started happening was I started training these individuals instead of me taking on these families. I would say, hey, look, I have a process. Let me send it to you. I'll check in on you. But it will actually go a lot better for this family if they have a good friend or family member
Right, because they have
helping
the
them through.
relationship with
They
the
have
person
the
in that
relationship.
relationship.
Right, right. And they just were intimidated, which I get it. Like, it is intimidating to think of funeral homes and, just family drama. And like, there's so
Or you're
much that
afraid you're going to
happens.
say the wrong thing or do the wrong thing.
Yeah,
And so but always choosing to not do anything because you're
yeah,
afraid of doing the wrong thing is not an option, really. It's not the
yeah.
option that we want to be able to be there for people. So
Right,
tell me
exactly.
a little bit about your the resources that you offer. And then I want to talk about your
Yeah,
exciting new devotional on the Bible app. But first, tell us about what
yeah,
are the resources if there are women who
yeah.
are listening and they're like, gosh, either I have a friend who's going through this now, or I know this is a need in my church or my organization. What are some resources that you offer that would be that our audience could, get a hold of?
Yeah, awesome. So, um, just to, I'm just piggybacking out off the little stories, but basically, all of those little things I would send people became a book. And so we do have a 30-day planner and guide. And so that will just walk people through everything they need in the first 30 days after a loss. It's available on Amazon, and we have it now on Kindle available if people just kind of want to read through the information. But it's meant to be like a workbook, like a workable solution. And then we have our app. And so we actually developed an app. The app is basically if I took my brain and like put it on the computer of the different situations and things that could help people. That's what it is. So sometimes I feel bad when I'm like, someone's like, my friend just died. What should I do? And I'm like, go download our app. But basically it
Like I
gives
spent a lot of time. It's out there. Use it.
it's out there, use it. It'll give you the suggestions. It'll ask you some questions. It takes you through just probably a matrix of about 10 questions just to get a feel for like, what does this person or family or situation need? And then we actually did train it through AI using our materials of what the responses would and could be. And so there is like a chat feature. People can go on there and kind of chat and see, for suggestions. And there's a calendar feature, which has been really great because, we all get busy in life and we're like, hey, I don't know what I should do or when I should do it. And oh, I'll do that someday. But that someday
Mm.
sometimes doesn't come, right? So our calendar feature will send reminders and notifications. Hey, you wanted to pick up dog poop once a month on Fridays. Like, here's a reminder. Or, oh, I scheduled a coffee date every Wednesday afternoon to check in on my friends. So it kind of gives you a little bit of like, here's some ways you could serve. Here's some ways you could tangibly stay involved. Maybe there was something you wanted to like send them a verse or a prayer or
Mm.
there's some of those suggestions in there as well. So it holistically looks at the situation and gives you suggestions of ways to stay present, ways to stay involved and to really check in ways that's not like kind of that spiritual band-aid. We wanted to go beyond that. Um,
And life gets so busy for both us but the person who's going through that loss, not only is life, certainly life can be busy, but it's in a different sense. So we might not realize that we just got through a holiday or a birthday or the anniversary date or the first of whatever coming
yeah.
up. So this is a great way. It sounds like you could put it on there and it will help you to remember so you can be more intentionally present with that person that you were trying to care for.
Yeah, exactly. And we've built in all of those important dates that we would think somebody would want somebody to reach out to them for those days. And it doesn't, and what's also the really cool part of it is it doesn't just deal with the loss of a spouse. So we include in there the loss of a child. Again, if it was lost due to maybe abandonment or imprisonment, we realize that there's certain types of loss that really affect those special holidays, certain times of the year, and we've included all of that in the app. So
Wow, Oh, what a great resource. And it sounds like anybody can download the app, right? So
Yes.
whether an individual who's experienced somebody, a friend or a family member or somebody they know who's going through a loss, or a church, a women's group, or their
Yeah.
seniors group, or their leadership team could also work within that app or download it or use these resources. So it's both for the
Yeah.
individual and for the larger groups of individuals who deal with multiple individuals who've gone through losses.
Yeah, exactly. And what's great about it is it's free. You just go to jointhemorning.org and our app is on the top of the page. We are working on building it out in the Apple and Android store, but for now it is a free web-based app and it will be free once it's on those other platforms. We're still fundraising and getting all of the things worked out before we put it on the platform.
Gosh, well, thank you for following God's um, just the open door, a door that you didn't want to walk through, but that you said, I'm walking whether I wanted to or not. So God, here I am, use me. And you and David, I know your husband have been through so much together doing this, and what
Yeah.
an amazing ministry.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah. And our hope is as much as we can do, we want to empower the individual, like the believer, to help their friend or family member facing loss. And then, like you said, the widespread, like the communities. Like, unfortunately, a lot of our grief programs currently that we have in the world or answers for grief are individualized and we separate. So we'll say, go to a counselor, go to a professional, go to this group. And we're not intentionally, but we're kind of pushing the griever away from us. And what our tools and what we're trying to do is build and incorporate and integrate it into our church, our communities. Again, if it's the individual that they feel empowered, they feel educated enough to be like, I can step in and I can help. And maybe you think, honestly, I think a lot of people think this, like, I just did blank and it's not that much, but to them it could mean the world. Like I
Mm,
said, I've had people do things for me during that time that I look back and it still makes me want to cry because I'm just like, they took the time, they thought of me, they prayed for me,
right.
and then they acted.
Mm,
And some of those things were like few and far in between, and they literally changed my life. And so I know that power for other people. And if we could just keep it in the front of people's minds,
kind of
it's,
like that straw that broke. I always tell people the straw that broke the camel's back. If you knew which one, you wouldn't have put it on. But sometimes
mm,
it's that, that they got a late fee or that now there's a leak, in the roof or the dishwasher isn't working. Or like you
yeah,
said, the dog poop, whatever
yeah,
it is,
yeah,
it can just seem so overwhelming and just knowing you're not alone. But before
yeah,
we wrap up, I want
yeah,
you to just tell us, you recently on the YouVersion Bible app, were able to get a devotional approved in this devotional, How to Pray for the Brokenhearted.
yeah.
Tell us a little bit, how do we find that? And just tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah. So again, God's just so good to use every single thing. I ran into an old friend at a memorial who, through just some connections, was able to help me get to the right person at YouVersion, which was just such a miracle because God had laid that on my heart, but I thought it was a closed door. And so, anyways, once they heard about what I was doing and that it was bereavement and the way we approached it, it went through really fast because unfortunately not a lot of people are talking about that or they're not providing those type of resources and tools to help the everyday believer. And so God, when everything got approved, I was like, oh no, well, what do I write on now? Because most of the stuff I've been writing for years is, yeah, it's encouraging, but it wasn't necessarily Devo style. And God was just like, Ashley, what have you been doing? Like, you care for the brokenhearted. And he just laid this devotion on my heart. And it was almost just like, he was just like, I was just transcribing what he was telling me. And so we have a 3-day devotional on there right now, how to pray for the brokenhearted. And it is geared, again, we're not gearing things towards the griever right now. We're gearing it thing towards the community. And
That are walking beside those who are grieving.
yeah. So how do we walk beside? How do we pray? How do we show up? And so it kind of mixes a little bit of the practical and stuff we were doing with a Devo style. And that was kind of exciting to be able to get creative in that way and to encourage believers to get in there, be boots on the ground, get your hands dirty and serve during this time. So
Well, amazing.
thank you.
Thank you for sharing your heart, for sharing your journey, for sharing the tools and resources that you put together so that
Yeah.
all of us know people who are grieving, who are struggling, whether with any kind of loss. But it won't be very long if we don't, that we will, because that
Yeah.
is a part of life that we want to be able to help people know they're not alone. We want to feel not alone if that happens to us, like you shared. And I just am so thankful that you took time with us today, that you were faithful to God and have got all of these resources for us. So I encourage you to check out Joy in the Morning, to be able, and mourning is in sadness, mourning.
Yeah. MOU.
Yeah, so you spell it right in case they're looking
MOU.
for that. But thank you for being here, Ashley. Thank you all for listening. And I hope that you found some encouragement and some just that God has, kind of touched your heart with how can you reach out to those who are experiencing loss and grief in your world. So thank you for being here, and we'll catch you on next episode.
Thanks for listening. I pray you found hope in today's conversation and maybe even feel a little less alone in your story. Stay connected with us on Facebook and Instagram at Reclaimed Story. Want to learn more about living a reclaimed life and how you can be a part of our growing community of reclaimers? Check out our website at www.reclaimedstory.com. And if you enjoy these inspirational podcasts, be sure to subscribe, rate, and review. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time.